Well, indigenous plants have played an important part in African culture for generations. And as Ayanda just said, Umhlonyane in isiXhosa, Lengana in Sesotho, and wormwood in English. That's the plant that's become the focus of a lot of controversy after Madagascan President Andry Rajoeline announced that it can cure COVID-19. Let's find out what that experience has been from South Africans who use it as a herbal remedy.
It's been used in South African homes for generations to treat colds and flu. Some say its effect can be felt overnight. When news emerged of Madagascar touting it as a corona cure, South Africans took to social media saying there's no grandmother who didn't use Umhlonyane. Others say the herb could save President Cyril Ramaphosa billions of rands, as many have this popular plant growing wild in their gardens. To shed some light on Umhlonyane and its uses, Newzroom Afrika consulted indigenous medicine expert and healer Gogo Kanyugute and poet and mother Lebo Mashile.
A lot of people grew up with grannies who would boil it for them whenever they were feeling sick. The reason why it's a tried and tested solution is because it works. When I'm feeling my immune system getting depressed, I make a big pot of tea using lengana.
Indigenous medicine expert Gogo Kanyugute says it can be used to treat any kind of respiratory illness and does not only have to be drunk as a tea.
But since we heal holistically, we also believe that this plant can be used much like a humidifier or a nebulizer to be able to then steam ugufuta, where you would prepare it as the herb form in a boiling formula and then cover yourself so that you can relieve the symptomatic ailments that come with the respiratory illness, such as fatigue, muscle pains, and sleeplessness.
Mashile says she feeds the tea made from the herb to her entire family.
I'm not saying that this is a solution that means that you don't have to take Western medicine. No, the two can complement each other. Lengana will help to build your immune system over time, and you will feel the effects, almost immediately. So stay indoors, keep each other safe, stay healthy.
She urges people to be safe and stay healthy while the country and the world tries to overcome COVID-19.
Well, of course, the race is on to find a vaccine for COVID-19, with countries such as the United States already starting with human trials. Here in South Africa, a group of medical experts led by Professor Helen Rees is part of an international team known as the Public Health Emergency Solidarity Trial. And in fact, Professor Rees joins us now for more on this story. Professor, thanks so much for your time on the AM report this morning. I mean, a vaccine certainly is the only thing on all our minds at the moment. What should we read into government's decision to assist authorities in Madagascar to test this herb?
Well, I think there are two different things. I think government is very strongly as well supporting the development of a vaccine. In fact, it's a worldwide need that's been fast-tracked enormously in an unprecedented way. And there will be soon, if all goes well, there would be vaccine trials starting in South Africa of vaccines that have been tested, initially one that's been tested in the UK.
And, if I just think about the issues around this herb that's being touted in Madagascar as a cure for COVID-19, I mean, the worry about something like that is what might come about as a false sense of security. People drink this particular product and they behave in a way that goes against all of the work that's being done to contain the virus.
Well, that's always a concern. But, I mean, in South Africa, the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority does have a framework that looks at complementary medicines and traditional medicines as well. The worry is that once you start to manufacture this and it becomes commercial, then there are several things to think about. What is the formulation? What is the dosage? How do you ensure that it's of a good quality and it's consistent? But very importantly, does it work and is it safe? So there's an extensive research agenda in South Africa looking at traditional medicines and looking at the molecules that are in those. And indeed, some of our modern medicines have been derived from plants, and we've learned a lot from traditional medicines. But there's a gap between traditional medicines as they are given and as was just described by your previous speaker, and then manufacturing and becoming commercial. For that, when you're starting to make big claims and you're wanting to roll it out to possibly hundreds of thousands of people, you really need to have clinical trials that show it's safe and efficacious.
So how far out are we for clinical trials, Professor Rees?
In this sense, I think that certainly that there are two initiatives here. I think in Madagascar itself, there's a move to have clinical trials, but also there's been a request to what's called the African CDC, the Centers for Disease Control in the African region, to look at, in Madagascar it's called Artemisia, to look at these herbs and to see if clinical trials and protocols can be urgently developed.
Yeah. I mean, you would know that there's a lot of politics around the development of a vaccine. You know, China and the US in a race to be the first to get there. I imagine that the work that you do steers well clear of the politics surrounding the issue.
Well, I think clinicians and scientists at the moment need to stick to what they're good at, which is doing the research and trying to find solutions both for treatment and drugs to prevent, but as you say, a vaccine. But one thing that everyone, particularly in this part of the world, is worried about is we've got now 100 candidate vaccines. About 6 are already in early clinical trials. And as I say, South Africa will be participating in this. But further down the line, if we are successful, say, in about 18 months' time and we develop a vaccine, everyone is very concerned that, for example, the African region and poorer countries are going to have equal access to this vaccine, and that it's not just going to be limited to access in wealthier countries who would monopolize manufacturing and distribution.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the cost of that vaccine also then becomes a major issue. Professor Helen Rees, thank you so much for your time on the AM report this morning. The professor is part of an international team known as the Public Health Emergency Solidarity Trial.